Banjo-Kazooie is unquestionably one of my favourite video games of all time. It was a beautifully made 3D platformer with incredible level design, a fantastic soundtrack, and a charming cast of characters. These days, it's pretty universally beloved, and people also felt the same way back when it first came out. It was so popular, in fact, that Rareware almost immediately began to work on creating its sequel. And a mere 2.5 years later, Banjo-Tooie released to great critical acclaim. Players and critics alike seemed to like this game at the time, but nowadays it seems as if people have soured on it to a degree. I think most people have always preferred the first game, but its sequel has been catching a fair bit of flack lately. Personally, I love Banjo-Tooie, and honestly, I think I prefer it to Banjo-Kazooie. I know most people don't share this standpoint, so I wanted to talk about what makes this game so awesome to me. I'm Fiber Optic Broadbean, and this is why I love Banjo-Tooie. Surprisingly, Banjo-Tooie's story is much darker than Banjo-Kazooie's. I mean, 5 minutes into the game, Bottles from the first game straight up dies. It's not like he's just knocked out or anything, like this man is deceased. This is made even more apparent when you step out of Banjo's house and you're greeted with Spiral Mountain, or at least what's left of it. The whole thing has been absolutely demolished, and it's accompanied by a very morose, sorrowful rendition of the once cheery music. It's a bleak way to start off the game. I mean, losing both your old home and a trusted friend in Bottles? That's weirdly grim for a normally light-hearted 3D platforming series, and sets a dark tone for the narrative of this game going forward. It's clear that Grunty is a lot more serious with her plans this time around. In order to claim her life force back, she and her sisters create the B.O.B, or Bob, a machine used to suck the life out of anything it touches. Early into the game, we're introduced to King Jingling, the king of the Jinjos, a nice, respectable character who provides us with the first Jiggy of the game. Then, only moments later, Grunty fires the B.O.B at him and the poor guy gets zombified. With two pretty important characters getting killed off right toward the beginning of the story, Banjo-Tooie makes it abundantly clear that the stakes are higher than ever this time around. And thus, the journey to put a stop to Gruntilda's antics begins. Before we jump into the actual gameplay though, I want to take a second to appreciate just how phenomenal this game looks. I mean, for a Nintendo 64 game, the graphics are gorgeous. The worlds are well textured, the lighting is fantastic, and it's easily one of, if not the best looking games on the system. Rareware really knew how to push the hardware to its absolute limits, and nothing makes this clearer than this room here, Master Jiggywiggy's temple. The reflective texture on the floor genuinely blows me away every time I see it. Sometimes I have to stop here, take a second, and admire the beauty of this game. These visuals are complemented by the delightful soundtrack, courtesy of Grant Kirkhope, and I particularly love how adaptive the music is. It feels like there's a different variation of each song for every situation that you're in, every building that you enter. This, combined with how stunning the game looks, creates a sense of immersion that never fails to hook me in. Now, rather than Gruntilda's lair, which is still accessible, albeit blocked off in this game, Banjo-Tooie's main hub world is the Isle of Hags. To be honest, the styles that these hubs go for couldn't be more different, but both excel in a lot of different ways. While Grunty's lair capitalizes on its more confined nature with winding corridors and secret passageways in a more mysterious environment, the Isle of Hags is a lot more open, split into smaller, themed environments that all connect together. However, the game makes use of this open space to flesh out the world of Banjo-Kazooie to an extent never seen before in the last game. We get to see the home of the Jinjos, Bottles' house, and we even find out there's a whole Jiggy religion with priests and disciples. As the Isle of Hags isn't small in size or limited to being exclusively a witch's lair, it takes the opportunity to expand the lore of the Banjo-Kazooie universe through all of these creative ideas and runs with it. Honestly, I find its whole existence to be such a cool concept. It expands on the world of Banjo-Kazooie in a way that you wouldn't even think was possible. Like, just beyond Spiral Mountain and Grunty's lair, the confines of the first game, there was this whole entire world just sitting there, waiting to be discovered. I also find its warp system to be a lot more intuitive than Grunty's lairs. There, you had the cauldron warps, which allowed you to teleport between designated pairs of cauldrons. In the Isle of Hags, you can use these silos, which let you choose which area you want to travel to from a menu, a very convenient change. As for the main levels, while Banjo-Tooie only has 8 compared to Banjo-Kazooie's 9, each one is insanely massive to the point where there's significantly more content to go around here than there was in Kazooie. Take the first worlds of each respective game for example. Mumbo's Mountain in the first game is a great opener, where you get to learn a lot of your fundamental moves for the rest of the game. It's overall a pretty simple level and can be beaten in only 10 to 15 minutes if you know what you're doing. Mayahem Temple on the other hand is a different beast entirely. It's much more open in its layout, with a sprawling landscape to walk through and various sub-areas coming off it. I'm a big fan of it to be honest, and the jiggies are a lot of fun to pick up. You've got one where you need to sneak past a snake without waking it up, and another where you have to enter a football tournament while disguised as a little stone guy courtesy of Humble Wumba, who handles the transformations in this game. Now, you might be wondering, if Humba is in charge of the transformations, then what's Mumbo up to? Well, in this game, if you visit him in his skull, you actually get to play as him and use his spells to achieve various tasks within the different levels. In Mayahem Temple, for example, you use his magic to take control of this giant golden statue, which allows you to destroy everything in your path and walk across this swampy water completely unharmed to allow you to claim a Jiggy. Admittedly, this does feel a little gimmicky, but I do like what they did here, and the uses of the spells get more interesting as the game goes on. This world also introduces some of the most fundamental new moves that you'll be using throughout this game. Given that Bottles is no longer with us, may he rest in peace, the moves in Banjo-Tooie are taught to you by Jam Jars, his very militaristic brother. Now, you keep all of the moves from the previous game, which already felt like a pretty versatile kit, but Jam Jars has some more advanced techniques which he teaches you in a fittingly militaristic manner. In Mayahem Temple, you learn from him how to grab ledges as well as the ability to aim eggs. These feel like very natural extensions to Banjo and Kazooie's moveset and are just useful to have. Ledge grabbing always felt like it was missing from the first game, and the egg aiming is very versatile since you can use it to solve puzzles and hit airborne enemies. Banjo-Tooie also expands on the whole egg shooting mechanic with its different types of eggs, again courtesy of Jam Jars. This includes fire eggs, grenade eggs, ice eggs, and Clockwork Kazooie eggs, all of which have different utilities. I always find using all the different egg types to be so much fun, especially the grenade eggs, which are the most powerful weapons in this game. They can blow pretty much anything up, but you have to be careful that you don't get yourself blown up in the process. The Clockwork Kazooie eggs are really interesting too, and let you take command of a tiny mechanical Kazooie. These are used to solve various puzzles, which usually involve travelling through small passageways. You can even use them to get creative in sequence break by shooting them towards certain collectibles to allow you to get them earlier than you should, which is pretty neat. I always had fun messing around with them. Mayahem Temple is also where you learn how to use Kazooie as a gun. Yeah, for some reason, Banjo-Tooie has these FPS sections every once in a while. This might seem weird at first, but it's surprisingly fun. You use Kazooie's eggs to shoot a bunch of enemies and pick up these sacred statues along the way, and in this level, there's a cheeky little fake out as well. Once you collect enough statues, you'll unlock the quote-unquote slightly sacred chamber, which contains a Jiggy which you can just pick up with no issues. Collect some more statues though, and you'll find that a second chamber opens up. On the surface, it looks like you're getting another free Jiggy. Banjo and Kazooie even comment on this and break the fourth wall here. However, in reality, when you try and collect it, the boss of this world, Target San, appears to destroy you and ruin your day. It's a fun fight, and the build up to it is just classic Rareware humour. Mayahem Temple is also home to the game's first example of backtracking, and this is something that people aren't too keen on when it comes to this game. Basically, you see some boulders that you're unable to break, and you have to come back to this level after unlocking a move, the Bill Drill in the next world, in order to break them. There were a couple of instances of this in the first game, but it was only once or twice. In Banjo-Tooie, the backtracking is present throughout the whole game, and I get why people don't like this, but at the same time, it didn't really bother me. Seeing things that I was unable to do in one level, and then unlocking a new ability later on and realizing what I had to do, to me that was one of the most satisfying feelings I had when I played this game. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's something that only enhanced this game in my eyes. Mayahem Temple takes a very different approach to what Mumbo's Mountain set out to achieve, but both are absolutely valid ways of crafting a first level. Mayahem Temple is honestly a textbook example and a perfect introduction to how Banjo-Tooie differs from the first game. While Kazooie is simpler and more streamlined in its design, Tooie has a greater focus on exploration of its massive environments, broken up by puzzle solving and minigames. The worlds in Banjo-Tooie are all much much bigger than the ones in Kazooie. So much bigger in fact that, much like in Donkey Kong 64, the game even provides you with warp pads to teleport between different areas of a level. However, unlike in Donkey Kong 64 where the warp pads are paired according to their numbers, here you can teleport freely between any of the warp points. In my opinion, this is a far better system and helps you to more conveniently access important parts of the game's levels. It also helps to mitigate any issues that would come with navigating through a larger world, like getting lost or having to spend too much time walking around aimlessly. The structure of the worlds and how you acquire Jiggies is also quite different. While in Kazooie, the Jiggies were primarily based on platforming challenges, Tooie introduces a lot more variety. For one, every single world contains a boss fight, and these are beautifully tied into the level theming. You've got a big coal monster in Gulch Mine, a pterodactyl in the aptly named Terrydactyl Land, and even a giant welding torch in Grunty Industries. Like, who even thinks of that? Having these bosses there in every world gives them a more regular structure than the levels in Kazooie, and helps to flesh out the themes even further. Another difference between the levels in this game you'll notice is the note system, although this is something I'm a bit more mixed on. In Banjo-Kazooie, 100 individual notes were scattered around each level, whereas in Tooie, you'll find them in clusters of 5, with one treble clef worth 20 notes in each world. I do think I prefer the way things were done before, since it felt more satisfying to pick up all the notes, and they were often hidden in some obscure areas, off the beaten path, which made you explore each world to its fullest. In Tooie, it sort of feels like you pick up most of the notes without intending to. On the plus side, your notes do actually save if you die, which was one of the most frustrating things that wasn't in the original. I think my favourite thing about the worlds in Banjo-Tooie though is how interconnected they all feel. There are a lot of different passageways that allow you to seamlessly travel from level to level without even needing to return to the Isle of Hags. There are so many of these found throughout the game. There's a tunnel in Mayahem Temple, for example, that goes directly to Terrydactyl Land. There's one that takes you from Gulch Mine to Witchyworld, and you can even get into the sewage system of Grunty Industries via a pipe in Jolly Roger's Lagoon, and that's not even getting into Chuffy the train. Chuffy is a steam train you find in Gulch Mine who you can use to take you from level to level. In order to do this, you need to find and open each world's corresponding train station. This not only allows you to travel seamlessly between the worlds, but is also used in some really creative ways. For example, in Grunty Industries, you aren't able to enter the main area of the level initially because it's closed off. However, you are able to open its train station, and from there you can use Chuffy to enter the level and open it up from the inside. I remember when I discovered this as a kid, my mind was completely blown. This was such a clever use of a mechanic that, on the surface, appeared to be a simple fast travel method to get between worlds. The train can also be used to transport different characters from level to level, which is used to craft some very complex Jiggy puzzles. All of this interconnectedness provides a sense of cohesion and unity. It makes it feel like Banjo-Tooie's world is, well, a world. The levels aren't just mere separated, isolated playgrounds, rather they're part of a whole. You can even see a bird's eye view of how all the worlds are laid out from Cuckooland, and I think that's such a cool detail. What helps to flesh out the world of this game even further is the cast of characters. In Banjo-Kazooie, sure things did feel pretty lively, but it felt like there were only a handful of characters to interact with throughout its levels. In Banjo-Tooie, it feels like every level is full to the brim of NPCs to interact with. There are a bunch of random side characters who you speak to and help out with their various issues to get yourself a Jiggy or two. Even in the Isle of Hags, there are a lot of new faces. There's King Jingling, Heggy the Hen who hatches stop and swap eggs, Honey Bee who you exchange your extra honeycomb pieces with to extend your health meter, and as I mentioned before, there's the whole Jiggy religion with the priest known as Master Jiggywiggy. They even bring back a few characters from the first game as well, like Royston the Goldfish who teaches you how to swim faster by holding A and B at the same time. A much needed upgrade over the swimming controls from the first game, by the way. Bottles' kids even give you a spare pair of goggles that he was working on, which allow you to zoom in and out when you're looking at something. Not only does the world of Banjo-Tooie feel interconnected, but it also feels so alive as well. Now, Gulch Mine is the second world in the game, and despite being a little bit tricky to navigate at first, I'm a pretty big fan of it. My favourite thing about this place has to be the theming and aesthetics. As you'd expect, the level takes place in a mine with piles of crystals, cowboy-themed enemies, and minecart tracks running throughout it. This is accompanied by a jolly, bouncy, upbeat tune which gives the place a much more pleasant atmosphere than you'd expect from a mine of all places. As I mentioned before, the boss of this level is a giant pile of coal, but But that's not the only thematically fitting Jiggy in this world. Almost everything you do here ties into the theme of a mine level. You have to defuse sticks of TNT, navigate through a cavern by using fire eggs to activate power generators, and even race against a canary in a handcart. We'll get back to her later. The coolest one by far is where you use Mumbo's magic to levitate a boulder containing a Jiggy into the crushing shed, where it gets smashed to pieces, sending fragments of the Jiggy flying away. When you pick up each little piece, a small section of the Jiggy collection fanfare plays, and it's only when you collect all of the fragments that you obtain the whole Jiggy. Glitter Gulch Mine isn't perfect though. I will say, it could do with a few more landmarks to help get around, as a lot of the areas around the world do feel a bit samey and it can get confusing. Despite all that, it's a solid world, and it was one of my favourites as a kid. Witchyworld is quite possibly the most popular level in this game, and for good reason. As the name suggests, it's a Gruntilda-themed amusement park with various different attractions found throughout as set pieces. There's a Wild West area, a space-themed area, even ones based on Area 51 and Hell? You know, just normal theme park things. In spite of its size, it's one of the worlds that's probably the easiest to navigate in this game. This is because there's a big circus in the middle which acts as a reference point, allowing you to always get your bearings with where you are. The level being split into zones also helps, as it allows you to compartmentalize the different areas in your head. Some of the highlights to me were the boss fight against Mr. Patch, where you have to fly around shooting eggs at this big inflatable patched up dinosaur to take him down, and seeing some of the characters from the first game, like Gobi, Boggy's kids, and even Boggy's wife, who was newly introduced in Tooie. This world also marks the debut of what was arguably the biggest selling point that Banjo-Tooie had to offer from a marketing perspective. You see, it's in this level that you're given the ability to separate Banjo and Kazooie. By standing on these designated split-up pads, you're able to, well, split the duo up and take control of each character individually. This is a fantastic idea that I'm sure many people who played the first game always thought about, so it's awesome to see it realised here. When they're separated, Banjo and Kazooie have completely different sets of moves compared to when they're together. Since he doesn't have Kazooie with him anymore, Banjo's backpack is now empty, so the majority of the new abilities that he gains access to revolve around said backpack. He can swing it around to attack enemies, rest inside it to regain health, use it to cross hazardous terrain, carry around NPCs inside of it, the list goes on. Kazooie, on the other hand, being no longer weighed down by Banjo, is able to run a lot faster, jump a lot higher, and of course still retains all of her egg and feather based abilities. She can also hatch eggs, and what I find to be the coolest thing ever is that she can actually glide around freely at any time without using any feathers. I don't know why, but I absolutely love doing this, even when the game doesn't even require me to. It's just so satisfying to be able to glide over everything without a care in the world sometimes. Of course, you don't have all of these abilities right from the outset. Much like the other moves in this game, you're taught them by jam jars, but man are they fun to mess around with. I'm getting off track here though. Witchyworld is overall a stellar world and definitely deserves its fan favourite status. Then there's Jolly Roger's Lagoon, which is the game's water level, but somehow, despite my general distaste for water stages, it might genuinely be my favourite level in the whole game. You start off in a quaint little seaside town with kind of a pirate theme going on. It's a very relaxing vibe with a fair few jiggies to collect, and you can even find Tip Tup from the previous game and Diddy Kong Racing just chilling there. There's also a whole currency system with doubloons that you can collect and spend to buy running shoes, a jiggy, and even a hotel room. However, what you see above the surface is only the beginning. In this world, when you use Mumbo's magic, he somehow harnesses the power of the sun to oxygenate all of the water in the level, which prevents you from ever running out of air. Now, it might not look like there's that much water in this level, so at first this seems a bit overkill. But then, in one of the seemingly shallow pools, you see a hole in the ground. Dive into it, and you'll find a small underwater cave. Pretty neat, right? But explore just a little bit further and you'll stumble across a massive, undiscovered Atlantis-style area with ruins as far as the eye can see. This is the beauty of Jolly Roger's Lagoon. Initially, it seems like a small, simple level, but when you dive beneath the surface, you discover that it is so much more than that. The underwater section actually makes up the bulk of the world, and you'll spend the majority of your time here. There are so many different areas, so many tunnels to swim through, so many ruins to explore, and there's a real sense of wonder and magic that comes along with that. I love that the transformation of the world is a submarine as well. I love how there are running plot threads that go from the town to deep underneath the sea. I love that you go into Davy Jones's locker and fight against a giant fish boss. All of this, combined with the vastly improved swimming controls and the fact that you have no air meter to hold you back, genuinely makes this one of my favourite platforming worlds of all time, and I never thought I'd be saying that about a water level. Next up is Terrydactyl Land, which I do consider to be one of the weaker levels in this game, but that's not to say it's bad by any stretch. In fact, there's a lot that I do like about it. What's immediately apparent about Terrydactyl Land when you first step into it is its size. This world is big. I know I said all of Banjo-Tooie's worlds are big, but Terrydactyl Land takes it to the next level. Some would argue that it is in fact too big. I can definitely understand the criticism here. It's a large, open wasteland that's very easy to get lost in, and there is a fair bit of empty space that feels like it could have been utilised better. However, I feel like the sheer size of this level, despite being its biggest weakness, is arguably its biggest strength as well. Very few platforming worlds are able to feel huge, but Terrydactyl Land does precisely that, especially in terms of its verticality. Going from the bottom of this stage to the top feels like a massive climb, and when you finally reach the top, you feel insanely high up. There are some cool dinosaur-themed jiggies as well. For example, you eventually get to this area called the Stomping Plains, where you see these massive footprints in the ground, but no sign of what left them. When you walk into this place, you'll immediately be crushed by a massive dinosaur known as Stomponodon, and this takes away all but one of your honeycombs. To cross the plains, you have to run in between his footprints and seek refuge inside of them when he tries to stomp on you. I always found this to be a fun segment, and it really sells the idea of how massive some of these dinosaurs are. Then there's the transformation, and man, this was awesome. At first, when you see Humbawamba, she'll transform you into a baby T-Rex, which is pretty sweet. But if you pay a visit to Mumbo Jumbo, he'll be able to cast a spell on Humbawamba's tent, causing it to become bigger. When you return there as Banjo and Kazooie and jump into the transformation pool again, you transform into a massive adult T-Rex. That's right, this game did it before Mario Odyssey. Enemies will flee at the mere sight of you, and you can kill them by simply stomping on them. The novelty of it alone is cool, but it's also used for a few jiggies too, scaring off cavemen and such. Overall, Terrydactyl Land has its fair share of issues, but equally it's got a lot of strengths as well. Now, Grunty Industries is quite possibly the most controversial level in Banjo-Tooie, and is considered by many to be their least favourite world in the game. It's incredibly complex, convoluted and difficult, so I can see why people had their issues. In fact, I actually felt a similar way when I played this game for the first time. However, on a replay is where I properly started to appreciate how well crafted this world truly is. Basically, the main bulk of the level takes place inside Grunty Industries, the factory. This is a massive building consisting of 5 floors. The jiggies here often take a lot of steps to obtain. A lot of what you do at the start of the level is just opening more and more of the factory up and setting yourself up for certain jiggies. There are so many different passageways and corridors between the floors, from staircases to air ducts to elevator shafts. Many of the puzzles also span across multiple floors as well. For example, you can see some platforms on one floor that are too high to access. But if you go to the area where that platform would be on the floor above, you'll find 4 screws holding down a piece of metal. Unscrew all of them using your bill drill and it will lower the platform on the floor below, allowing you to jump across it. One time, you do this, and the platform has a Mumbo pad on top of it. You use Mumbo's magic here, and you'll temporarily disable an electromagnet, which ordinarily was preventing you from pushing a switch. As a washing machine. That's the transformation for this world, by the way, and it's really funny. Hitting this switch opens up a room in the repair depot where you go to fight the boss of this world, Weldar. There are so many layers to the jiggies in this level, and while it can feel confusing to piece everything together at first, it makes each individual jiggy feel super satisfying to figure out. I could honestly go on about Grunty Industries for this entire video, but I'll save that for another time. Grunty Industries exemplifies what makes Banjo-Tooie a fundamentally different game to Banjo-Kazooie, which is probably why most people either love it or hate it. Me though, I'm comfortably in the former camp. Hailfire Peaks is next, and it is a fantastic concept for a level. Some might argue that it's a bit overused or cliche, but despite that, in my opinion, it is still a fantastic world and one of the best in this game. As you might have guessed based on the name, it combines the ideas of a fire level and an ice level together. You start off on the fiery side, which is a scorching, active volcano with lava everywhere and a lot of fiery enemies to dodge. It's clearly dangerous, and your main goal is to climb up it, but when you get to a certain point on your ascent, you'll find an entrance with a blue glow emanating from it. Go into said entrance and you'll be greeted with a complete contrast. Snowy slopes, icy floors, yeti enemies. This is the icy side. The hail in Hailfire Peaks. A snow-capped mountain to rival the volcano from the fiery side. The stark dichotomy between the two sides is what makes this world so fantastic, but they're both tied together by the boss fights, plural. On the fire side, you'll face Chilly Billy, the fire dragon, and on the icy side, you'll battle Chilly Willy, the ice dragon. I love that they both think you're their pizza delivery guy, it's great. It's not just the bosses in the main passageways that link the two sides together though, there's also a secret tunnel between Mumbo's skull on the fire side and Wumba's wigwam on the icy side, and that completely blew my mind when I discovered it for the first time. This level is also home to one of my favourite transformations in the game, that being the snowball. You primarily use this on the icy side, and when you roll around in the snow, you get bigger. However, there is one point where you have to go into the fiery side as the snowball, and when you do this, you begin to melt. As such, you need to work quickly to get back to the icy side, and I really like that the two sides interact with each other in this manner. Hailfire Peaks is an absolutely legendary world, and is probably my second favourite one in this game, behind only Jolly Roger's Lagoon. Finally, the last world in the game is Cuckooland, and I have mixed feelings about this one. It's meant to be this strange, surreal island in the sky and combines a lot of very dissonant ideas together. There's a giant bin, a giant wedge of cheese, a pot of gold, a castle made of jelly. The point is, it's meant to be weird, it's meant to be cartoonish, it's not meant to feel cohesive. I get that, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like this world is missing something, as if it feels rushed to an extent. I mean, even the transformation, being the bee, is reused from the first game. I know everything's meant to be random, but it just never quite clicked with me. And also, remember Canary Mary from Glitter Gulch Mine? Well, she comes back in this level, and let's just say she's a little tougher this time around. So tough, in fact, that this Jiggy is quite comfortably the hardest one in the game to obtain. Basically, you have to mash A as quickly as possible, but what makes it difficult is that you have to sustain this for the whole race, and Canary Mary's rubber banding is absolutely ridiculous. It's a super hard challenge, and one that's become quite infamous within the community. Still, despite this, I do enjoy Cuckooland, from its openness to its weirdness to even its boss fight. This one was a neat idea and involved you fighting a fake mumbo jumbo, complete with a fake skull and everything. It caught me totally by surprise when I discovered it for the first time, and for the shock value alone, it earned some points there. I will say that Cuckooland is probably my least favourite world in the game, but considering how excellent its competition is, that's not too surprising. Now, it's clear that a lot of care was put into this game, and this is made even clearer by all of the secrets and Easter eggs the developers put in. You see, the first game had Cheeto's cheat codes, which could be used to double your egg, red feather, and gold feather capacity. In Banjo-Tooie, the system is a little bit different, in that instead of finding Cheeto in hidden locations, you find his pages scattered throughout the worlds. This is because Gruntilda ripped all of them out after he helped you out in the first game. Once you collect a certain number of them and return them to him, he'll give you a cheat code, and on top of the item capacity extenders from the first game, there were a ton of others added in here. Ones to eliminate fall damage, to make your eggs home in on enemies, to make Banjo run faster. There's even one that gradually heals you over time, although I feel like this one is a bit broken. There were a couple of really cool ways that they played with this mechanic too. In Master Jiggywiggy's temple, for example, if you went behind him and walked through the curtain, it'd reveal a secret passageway leading to a hidden area home to 3 signs. On one of those 3 signs, you'd find text that read, "An egg container followed by a jingling." As it turns out, this is a hint for a cheat code. The egg container part of the hint refers to a nest, while the jingling part means king, and when you combine these together, you get the code Nest King. Put this into the code entry room in Mayahem Temple, and you'll get infinite eggs and feathers, which, again, is absolutely broken, especially considering all the different types of eggs you get access to in this game. Then there's the whole situation with the stop and swap eggs and the ice ski. Basically, around Spiral Mountain and the Isle of Hags, you'll find some Nintendo 64 cartridges that you can destroy to find these items. items. The eggs can be hatched in Heggy's egg shed to provide you with rewards like a playable Jinjo in the multiplayer modes, and also the Breagle Bash attack, which I love so much. It's a perfect dose of slapstick comedy, and a surprisingly powerful attack involving Banjo swinging Kazooie at full force onto the floor, and it's actually the origin of Banjo's forward smash in Smash Bros. Ultimate. Then there's the ice key. At first, it's not exactly clear what you're supposed to do with this thing, but after some thorough exploration, you'll eventually come across an ice chest, hidden away in a secret area. Inside this chest is a Mega Globo, a magical creature you can give to Humba Wumba, who will, in exchange, give you an awesome reward. To put it simply, she turns Kazooie into a dragon. Dragon Kazooie can breathe fire at will, and is the greatest thing that has ever graced my eyes. It's the perfect thing to reward players who are willing to explore every nook and cranny of the game's worlds. Little things like this show just how passionate the developers were for this game. I think it's undeniable that Banjo-Kazooie is a more well-rounded game than Banjo-Tooie. It's streamlined, polished, and has very few flaws to speak of. Despite this, I will always be in the camp of people who prefer Banjo-Tooie to the first game. I know it had its fair share of issues, but I can't help but feel enamored by just how ambitious this game was. I think it had some incredible ideas, and while sure, not all of them were slam dunks, a good chunk of them were really impressive ways to expand on the first game. I loved how expansive its levels were, how many new characters it introduced, how it attempted to create a feeling of an interconnected world. I loved all of the new moves, all of the new collectibles, and all of the secrets and Easter eggs that they packed into this game. I love the complexity of the jiggies, the minigames, and this might be a weird thing to say, but I like the backtracking too. I enjoyed the feeling of seeing a jiggy I couldn't access in one world, unlocking a move in another, and connecting the dots in my head. I know I'm in the minority here, but I love that Banjo-Tooie just threw as many ideas as it could at the wall to see what stuck. It was quite possibly the biggest Nintendo 64 game in scope, and I'll always respect it for that. Banjo-Tooie is not only my favourite game in the series, but also my favourite game of all time.